Let's turn to Jackson County, Missouri now, and the race for a job that's had the public's attention for years. The role of Jackson County executive has certainly made headlines for a while. It all came to a head last fall when voters recalled longtime executive Frank White after a failed stadium sales tax vote and ongoing property tax problems. County legislature then tapped Phil LaVota to fill out White's term. LaVota had said he wasn't going to run for the job, then decided to before ultimately changing his mind.
And I had people pushing me, you should think about it. So I thought about it, and I decided I don't want to do it.
He'll stay in office through the end of the year, and now for the first time in a long time, it's open season for candidates looking to take the county's top job. And there are plenty of people who want to. Let's turn to Jackson County, Missouri now, and the race for a job that's had the public's attention for years. The role of Jackson County executive has certainly made headlines for a while. It all came to a head last fall when voters recalled longtime executive Frank White after a failed stadium sales tax vote and ongoing property tax problems. The county legislature then tapped Phil LaVota to fill out White's term. LaVota said that he wasn't going to run for the job, then decided to before ultimately changing his mind.
And I had people pushing me, you should think about it. So I thought about it, and I decided I don't want to do it.
He'll stay in office through the end of the year, and now for the first time in a long time, it's open season for candidates looking to take the county's top job. And there are plenty of people who want to. Republican side's pretty straightforward, with Army veteran Alan Rolfing running as the lone candidate in the race. But look at this crowded field on the Democratic side. Voters will choose between County Legislator Manny Abarca, former Lee Summit Mayor Bill Baird, Attorney Stacey Lake, campaign organizer Ryan Meyer, financial advisor Holmes Osborne, and former County Legislator Dan Tarwater. Brian Ellison and Michael Mahoney are sticking around to discuss the race. All right, whoever gets this job, guys, will have to tackle many decisions, but a lot of the decisions involving property taxes will have been made for them before they take office.
That's right. They're inheriting Phil LaVota's solution of offering tax credits over the next 3 years to people who overpaid on their property taxes. They've responded in different ways to that. By and large, they support the idea of repaying taxpayers. Although to some extent, Ryan Meyer is an exception who has raised caution over the impact that could have on school districts and municipalities that benefit from those property taxes. For the most part, they support giving money back, but some of them think it should be done sooner. Dan Tarwater in particular has emphasized that he thinks there should be direct refunds immediately to all the people who overpaid, not stretched out over 3 years. There's also been some responses about severing ties or taking legal action against the software developer whose software was responsible for calculating some of those overpayments. Tarwater as well as Stacey Lake have mentioned that as a priority for them.
Yeah, I think the idea that Tarwater has promoted here of basically getting a loan for the county and then cutting people checks sets him apart from a lot of the other folks who do believe tax credits are the way to go.
Mm-hmm. It should be noted, one of the Democratic candidates here in the race, Stacey Lake, almost knocked Frank White out of the primaries 4 years ago. Could she do it again, or is it just a completely different ballgame this time around?
Well, it's a different ballgame, but the fact that she performed so well in the election 4 years ago against Frank White, who is no longer the county executive, not a obvious factor in this race. I think that she's been on the ballot. People are familiar with her stands on this. I think the same is true with Dan Tarwater, who was county legislator and chairman of the legislature over the course of 28 years that he was on there, and he's also pledged only to run one term. And then Bill Baird, who the former mayor of Lee Summit. Those three, I think, are in the top tier of this race.
I think that's right. I think the race involving Stacey Lake versus Frank White was mostly seen as a referendum on Frank White. Yeah. That doesn't mean Stacey Lake doesn't have a following or that she won't make a strong showing because of that name familiarity. I think a lot of the question is how much support is there for any of the individual other candidates? Manny Abarca, very well known until recently, the legislature chair, but comes with some baggage, has been in the news for a lot of negative reasons lately. Bill Baird, mayor of Lee's Summit, well known in Lee's Summit. That doesn't mean he's universally supported in Lee's Summit, and it also doesn't mean he's well known in the rest of Jackson County. So, you know, it's a six-way race. It might only take 25% to win that race.
Yeah, good point.
And we'll see who has that.
One of the interesting things about this race, this may be one of the places, the county executives race, where we really see one of the main themes of this election overall, and that is that voters are ticked off. They are angry, not just Republicans, not just Democrats, independents. The voters seem to be angry, and the property tax debacle in Jackson County certainly will give them, you know, impetus to vent that anger.
Sure. You know, we could potentially see some turnaround in the county legislature this year. What would that mean for a new executive?
It means that the new executive is going to have to do what Frank White did not do very well, which was cooperate and communicate with the legislature. Now, Phil LaVota has tried to mend some fences there, to his credit, but the dynamic between the county legislature at one end of the hall in Jackson County and the county executive on the other end of the hall has always been pretty bumpy. A lot of elbows get thrown in there. We'll see beyond the property tax question, restoring some trust and some collegiality between the legislature and the county executive is going to be a big thing.
Yeah, it's something we haven't really seen in a while. So
Right.
we'll leave it there for now. Michael Mahoney, Brian Ellison, thank you so much.